So hello everyone, this is Felicia Bell from the Gulf States Regional Office here in Jackson, Mississippi. We welcome you to another weekly Wednesday workshop. We thank everyone that is joining us at this time, and we definitely look forward to others joining us as we're presenting. Today we have an awesome speaker, another ag specialist of our NCAT Gulf States Regional Office, Asha Tillman. She is the newest member to our office, and we wanted to definitely share her expertise with you, let you know what she basically went to school for, that will really be able to assist you on your farm. And so at this time, as you can see on the screen, the title, and I will turn it over to Asha to let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Felicia. Hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I am extremely excited today to talk a little bit about sheep and goat health. I'm just going to go through a couple of basics that I believe and I have found to be simple things that you can do to maintain the health of your goats or to boost the health of your goats, your herd, and also contribute to the overall health of the earth. So once again, thank you, Felicia, for inviting me for the second weekly Wednesday workshop. I'm truly grateful to be able to talk about this. I love talking about small ruminants. I believe they are one of the easiest group of livestock animals to maintain. And so I'll just get right into this presentation. Again, this presentation will be on small ruminant health, and it's a guide to keeping your sheep and goat healthy. So some of the topics today are parasite control, immunity, hoof care, record keeping. And I will go a little bit into these topics, and I also may divvy off into some other things. And again, like Felicia said, if you have any questions, please feel free to post those in the chat, and we can answer your questions after the presentation, or we can answer offline. So one of the things I have found to be extremely helpful with parasite control is rotational grazing. Rotational grazing can minimize the risk and exposure to parasites. When you are doing rotational grazing practices with your animals, it allows your animals to feed off the land. You're also able to reduce feed purchase, and it allows them to explore their palate. Another huge thing with rotational grazing is you want to have your paddock set up so that when you are moving your animals to each paddock, you are allowing them to graze only enough before they get to that 3-inch marker, because we all know that at that 3-inch marker is when they are more exposed to parasites. And so rotational grazing, again, is one of the biggest things I have found to help prevent parasites. Another thing I know a lot of you who are working with small ruminants, sheep and goat, may or may not have heard of is the 5-point check. And so that 5-point check includes the FAMACHA, the jaw, body condition scoring, and the coat and tail. And so what you're doing when you're doing your 5-point check, starting with the FAMACHA, you're going to use a FAMACHA card. I have the link here, and I can send this info to you guys. If you would like it, please reach out. I will give it to you. But you will utilize the FAMACHA card, and I have found it to be helpful to take that card and you want to tape it across your hand, or you could use a rubber band, so that while you're doing that recording of your animal, that card is readily available on your hand. You don't have anyone who's having to hold it, or sometimes they fly away. It's a tiny card, so you could easily lose it. So I found that really helpful to just use a rubber band to strap it to your hand. Also, another thing that's really helpful while you're recording the FAMACHA of your animal is you want to observe your animal in direct sunlight. because some of the time you cannot get a good reading if you're in the dark, or if there's, sometimes clouds over the sun. You're just not getting a good reading of the color of your animal's eye plus the card. So those are just two things I found to be helpful when recording the FAMACHA. On the FAMACHA card, you have the scorings are from 1 to 5. 1 is the best reading, indicating you have a healthy animal. That means that, I don't know if you can see here, but 1 is the pinkest. It means that your animal it has good flow, it's not anemic, less likely to have those parasites. 5 would be your animal is very sick. That is a very, very pale, unwanted color from your animal, and it most likely means your animal is losing blood, it's very anemic, and it has a very high parasite count in its fecal. Also, again, this link is from wormmix.com. This is where you can purchase your card for $9. Again, I can send that information over to you if you would like. The next of the 5-point check is the jaw. Bottle jaw or swollen jaw is an extreme sign of parasite infestation. Obviously, here you can see this goat that is not normal. Underneath under his jaw where it's puffy, there is inflammation. You want to be able to get on that ASAP, because I have witnessed animals die within a matter of hours or a day following that observation of bottle jaw. Next on that 5-point check is body condition scoring. So it depends. Starting off, I would say when you're looking at the body condition scoring, it depends on what type of small ruminant you're working with. Sheep tend to be a little bit more fat. Just depending on what species of goats you have, they tend to be a little smaller. Also, dairy goat, meat goat, the body condition scoring numbers vary, but typically what you would like to do is look at your animal from the back side. As you can see on the picture here on the left, it's a very, very, very thin animal that is less desired, of course. The middle is typically normal. Again, like I said, it depends on what animal you're working with, if it's a dairy goat or if it's a meat goat, and what type of goat it is, or sheep. And then on the far right, you have a very fat animal. It's very healthy, and that I'm sure is most desired. So 2 more things with the 5-point check are the coat. So the coat becomes very hard and brittle, almost like a brush due to lack of blood flow. Those are just one of the smaller things in the 5-point check when you're wanting to analyze your animal to see if they are sick from anemia, parasite, which is the cause of, parasites are the cause of anemia. You also want to be able to look at their tail, the tail end of the animal. You want to observe their fecal. We all know that goat poop, sheep poop, comes out in little pellets. And so typically that's normal. That means they're receiving enough fiber and all of those great things, their nutrients, the minerals, all of the supplements they need to keep them alive. But if their fecal is mushy and it's coming out not in that pellet form, it could be a sign of coccidia. And a lot of times people refer to the diarrhea as scouring. So just one of those terms to be very familiar with when you're doing your 5-point check. So let's talk about building immunity. One of the things that I have quite a bit of experience with is silvopasture. When utilizing silvopasture or having a silvopasture set up as a practice, you see that it's very helpful because you're utilizing natural woods, you're utilizing the nature, and you want to be able to do that because one, it costs less, and two, you will find that goats have they have a very strong palate for natural woody areas. So in silver pasture practices, what a lot of people tend to do, instead of wiping out all of the trees, instead of bush hogging and all those things, they're going to leave some woods and some natural forestation around, and goats will use that to graze on. And sometimes what people will do to plant some forests that they know are good for the goat's health, and it contributes to their palate, they will plant forage such as browse, certain grasses, legumes, cool and warm season forages. We all know that goats prefer to browse than grazing. And so a couple of things that they love to browse on are things like white lead tree, if you've heard of them, or mulberry or things like that. But, you know, they're goats. Goats will browse on anything. You don't necessarily have to plant anything, but it does help to have some palatable species available for them if you're going to have a silver pasture setup. Also, grasses, a lot of people plant Bermuda grass, they plant alfalfa, clovers are a really huge thing when folks are farming with small ruminants such as sheep and goat. Legumes are some of your I feel they are one of your most important grazers because they give back to the soil. Legumes are nitrogen fixated plant species that put nitrogen back into the ground, which promotes the microbial bacteria buildup in soil. And also, it makes the soil composition way much stronger. It also helps to decompose those parasites that are in the ground that the goats are excreting. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with cool and warm season forage. That is a really, really, really huge thing. I can share with you a list of cool and warm season forage. Please just put in the chat if you like to know that. Another thing to contribute to the immunity of parasites with goats, overall immunity of their health, is supplements. You want to give them minerals, iron, and for some people, anthelmintic drugs. Anthelmintic drugs, or also known as dewormers, are typically, I would say that's one of the number one uses with farming small ruminants to prevent parasites. But there's so many ways that you could prevent parasites in your herd that are holistic and it's sustainable, which are using minerals, which contributes to the overall health of the animal, and sometimes drenching with iron, which boosts the red blood cell count if your animal is anemic. One simple thing that a lot of people tend to forget is clean water. Water troughs, however you're getting your water to your animals. I know some people have natural springs, ponds, lakes, that is fine. But if you are giving water to your animals through troughs, one thing I would like to say is you want to always clean your troughs. In those troughs, you have a lot of buildup of mildew and things like that, that goats and sheep are a little bit more susceptible to, and it also makes them very sick. Goat and sheep, in comparison to other livestock such as horses or cows, they just simply have a less, they have a weaker immune system to things like dirty water and things like that. Maybe because their metabolism is a little bit faster. So just a few pointers. Water should always be clean and fresh. Animals prefer better quality water, and they perform better that way. And also, sheep and goats typically require better water quality anyways. This is another small thing, but huge thing to the overall health of your small ruminants, which is hoof care. So this is just a little photo here of one side is the hoof has grown out, it's needing to be trimmed, and the other side has been perfectly trimmed and properly trimmed, might I say. Um, when managing hoof care with your animals, it's kind of sort of a tedious thing because, you know, it's at the bottom of your animal and it's already enough caring for your animals, right? But every so often, maybe during record keeping, of which I'll get into that, you want to jot down how often you are trimming the hooves of your animals. That way you start to see a trend of how often you should be trimming their hooves. So one thing that I would say is when you're caring for your animals' hooves, you want to be able to also, like when you're recording your FAMACHA, you want to hold their hooves up, and you want to be able to get around that cuticle so that you do not cut too far down, because once they begin to bleed, that can be a complete mess, and it can also set up foot rot. Okay. And one of the biggest things that I would say, it's not caring for your animal directly, but it is very, very, very important for the overall keepsake of things, and that's record keeping. So record keeping can be tedious, as I said before, but it is a practice that each and every farmer should have. You want to be able to maintain good records of your animal's weight, the FAMACHA scoring, the body condition scoring, rotational grazing, planting, how often supplements were provided, how often dewormers were provided, and most importantly, which a lot of people do not do, which is the head count. So I'll go to the weight. A lot of times when you're doing record keeping and you record the weight of your animal, typically goat and sheep are going to maintain their weight week to week, unless there's a drastic change in the rotational grazing system you have set up, or there's a parasitic issue going on. If you are able to keep all of these things recorded, then you're able to see, oh, there's an issue. Then you're able to identify ahead of the game if there's an issue with your animal, and then you can attack it at the source. Also the same for FAMACHA and body condition scoring. Once you start to see that your animal's eyelids are not as pink as normal, then that is a sign that they're anemic. Body condition scoring, they're losing weight. There's several reasons why your animal could lose weight, but a lot of times, again, with small ruminants, it's due to parasite. Rotational grazing. Rotational grazing is a bigger thing to, as far as doing record keeping with, because there's so much into it, right? You have your cool season and your warm season grazing. You have how often you're switching your animals from each paddock. And then also for those who are really, really, really keen on record keeping, some folks like to go inside the paddocks and they like to use yardsticks to record the height of those grasses. All of these things are really, really, really important, because I found that when you're keeping good records of all these things, say for example, you allow your herd to graze or browse in a pasture for 5 days, and it's 5 days, one too many, and you move them to another paddock, but you record in that one pasture they were in that they've grazed below that 3-inch marker. We have a mistake. That mistake is that they've grazed or browsed before that 3-inch marker, and they have been exposed to parasites. So those are just some of the few things that I would say you want to be very keen on and on top of as far as record keeping. Planting your cool and warm season forages. You want to be mindful of what you've planted that year. it also exposes the palatability of the goats on the plants. How often you were giving your goat supplements. Goats typically, especially kiko, those that are bred to survive off of little to nothing in harsh conditions, they typically don't need anthelmintic drugs, dewormers, and supplements and things like that because they have a high tolerance. They have a very high resilience to parasites. But still, you want to be able to keep record of those things if you are giving your animals dewormers or if you are giving supplements such as minerals and things like that. And that would conclude my presentation. I know we have a lot of time here. So I am going to stop my screen sharing now. And if anyone has questions, I see a few questions in the chat here. Okay. Is it L. Fagan? Provide a list of cool and warm season forage. I can do that.
And definitely, if you want to ask a question, please unmute yourself.
Yes, we have plenty of time.
Hi, I'd like to ask, it seemed like most of the talk was geared toward goats. What is the big, or is there any kind of thing different that you need to look for or do if you have sheep and not goats?
You want me to take it, Asha?
Yes, Felicia can speak to sheep way better than I can, so I'll give it to her.
Yes, ma'am. I raise sheep, so it is a difference, and the difference is they graze. Goats usually browse, and then sheep graze. So it do tend to be different, and also their nutrient intake is different. Goats can take a little bit more copper than sheep can. And so it does vary with sheep and goat. Do you have a specific question pertaining to that when it comes to sheep?
Do you still need the 3-inch height when you take them off the grazing?
Yes, ma'am. You do.
Okay.
So the purpose of that, and I can explain it a little bit further. I usually said 4 inches, and I'm not disagreeing with Asha. The only reason why I say that, because we tend to get lazy, like she say. We won't move the animals. So if you're gonna do a 3-day rotation and then something come up and you just weren't able to move them, you want to give yourself a buffer. So I always just say 4 inches, because what happens is parasite goes up a grass blade and then the sun hits it and it falls back down to the soil. And that's usually a 2-inch break. And so we're saying 3 and 4 inches because you want to give yourself that buffer. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So if you have a closed herd, is it possible to have a parasite-free herd if it's closed?
It is. Yes, ma'am. I have been doing this since 2003. I have had bottle jaw a couple of times when we first started out, because you're learning. Parasites, that is it. And that's usually what Asha said for is that's the sign. I see it in one and I know I have issues, and our issues starting off was not moving them on time, learning the rotational system. But now we're in it, been in it for a long time now, and I don't have those issues. I do a every quarter natural way. I don't do a chemical-based agriculture here. So I do a natural I always call it just a maintenance. And so I'm giving them things usually every quarter or every 6 months. To make sure. So it's just a maintenance type thing, but I'm utilizing herbs, not a chemical based type things to deal with their health. But yes, ma'am, you can have the same issues with parasites with sheep if you let them eat it to the bare ground. Yes, ma'am.
So our cold weather and our warm weather feeding is, in the winter we have snow. So they're not on pasture except for June, July, August, and maybe September if we're lucky. So is there a reason that I would have to feed a grain? Or as they are, because they're ruminants, is it okay? And will they stay healthy if they're just fed quality hay and not grain?
So that's going to be determined on your methodology, your management rather. So they are small ruminants. Rumen means forward. They only eat forward. What I always stress to people when they eat grain, they rumen have to switch gears to be able to digest that. And that's what starts making them weak, the back and forth changing. And so I let people make that decision for themselves, but they're rumen. So you just have to take in consideration, what does that mean in an animal? One thing I want to share is I have seen cattle in snow that eat forage. So, you're planting your cold season or it's either coming up from dormant seeds, and the cows will move the snow and eat. So you have that. And then also, are you familiar with stockpile grazing?
My pastures are fairly small. So they get, in the spring when they're lambing, they get the spring grass for, to keep up with the milk production and the stuff that they need to raise the babies. And then, they're on hay.
I got you.
I don't feed grain, and sometimes I feel kind of guilty about that because everybody feeds grain to everything,
but sound like that's not always correct or good. Everybody has to choose their own management, but we always have to take in consideration the animal itself. What we choose to feed our animals don't always mean it's right for the animal. And that's why I always say that the human person involved have to make the right management decision for their animals. We do not go in the forest and feed grain to deers and any other ruminant that's out there. And so we have to take in consideration our management. Now, I will always tell you, if you get to a point that you see your animals losing weight, you have to do something to keep them from dying. And that's usually people are bringing the grain in to keep them up to par during the winter. But it sounds like to me, you think ahead. Again, it's management. And I always press that it's not the animals, it's us. And we tend to do the wrong management practices on our property that causes death and illness in our herd. And so, thinking ahead before it gets winter, and that sounds like what you do. And so one thing I would share with you is, you said high quality hay. I have added alfalfa in what we do. I have done, I know for a fact, because this property been here 5 generations, so we have dormant seeds, and we've always raised ruminant, but we raised a large ruminant before me. And so I know dormant seeds are there, but then I also plant too. And so I'll do, here is annual rye. I don't like that. I don't like doing the annual stuff. So I do perennial seed and those types of things. But of course, most farmers, some cannot afford that. But that's why I try to push perennial, because you can do it a season, do it in your fall and then do it in the spring. and then you see what it does on your land. So I'm not telling people to plant this every season. With perennials, you should not have to plant every season. And so those types of things would be helpful if you needed more forage.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Asha, I'll help you out with the chat so you could be listening. So we got, can you please talk more about selecting a breeder sheep, the St. Croix versus Katahdin versus the Gulf Coast Native? You want me to take the sheep, or you want to?
Yes, please.
Okay, so it's your choice. Like our participant, Miss Sherry, it depends on how much land you have and how many people you have to work your animals. For an example, your Gulf Coast Native, and I think the St. Croix, if I'm wrong, please let me know. I know because I raise Gulf Coast Native, they're wool sheep. Now your Katahdin is your hair sheep. And so if you do not have anything in line to, I'm talking about a person or an entity to come and shear your sheep, or if you haven't learned that skill set yet, and you don't have to shear every year if you move into like a value added product of working with your spinners and weavers. They don't want it every year. They tend to say it's too short. But still, you got to have that plan to have someone or yourself to shear your sheep. So again, you pick the animal that's conducive for your land, how much land you have, if you're going to do a grazing system, or are you going to do feed, and then the maintenance of that animal is how you choose your breed. So I hope I helped you with that question. If not, keep asking. I definitely don't mind answering. All right, Asha, you and I both can. Are mineral blocks available with less copper? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Are mineral blocks available with less copper? Felicia, I may need you on this question as well. I would say yes, I'm sure that they are, because like Felicia said, the goats have a less tolerance for copper, but they still need minerals. And so it's actually helpful for sheep to have copper to some sense. So I'm pretty sure that there are some minerals. I can look up a list that may be helpful if you're raising, is this Chris? I'm not sure if you have goats or sheep, but whichever animal you're referring to, maybe we can help a little bit more with it. I have to do some research on it.
Yeah. It depends on the company you working with, but it is loose mineral, your mineral block, that's specifically for sheep. Like it definitely, that was my learning curve. At first, I read everything before I bought it when we first got our sheep, because I knew that the copper would definitely take them out if they got too much. So yes, it is companies that are aware of it, and it's just when you're talking with them, it's just making sure. And what I usually do is the manufacturing, the actual company that makes the mineral blocks and the loose mineral, calling them and talking with them on the products that they make, and then you will be able to define what product you need, and then you come locally and see, can you find it? But I go to the manufacturer and just make sure. And like Asha said, we can help you with that if you need that type of assistance. But with this, I want to make sure. So that's why I go that extra. Our next question is, they were surprised that you didn't mention the selenium deficiency in goats and how to recognize that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Selenium deficiency let's see, who is this? Bunny.
Mhm.
Okay. Bunny, I will have to get back to you on addressing selenium deficiency. My experience with goat and small ruminant is a very small window. I am still learning myself, hoping to even start me an operation soon. So I will have to get back with you on selenium deficiency. Though I can speak to the parasites, and there are many different parasites. And no, loose feces is not just due to coccidia. Loose feces can be due to the forage that the goats are eating, or if you want to call it browse or whatever they're grazing at the moment. That can be a contributor to loose feces. Also, one of the things that I can say as far as the different browse that's available. So let me make sure I'm reading your question correctly here. Parasite differences too, as loose feces are not just due to coccidia. Addressing inappropriate browse for goats for preventing bloat, death, and stones. Again, some of those things I will have to get back to you on, but some inappropriate browse, there are some browse that can be extremely toxic. Some browse, such as mulberry, there's different species of mulberry. They are native to South America, but they are here in America very much. Certain browse such as mimosa and white lead tree, depending on what species it is, it can be very toxic. And it also depends on what region of the US you are in. A lot of these species are found here in the southern region of the US. Because they are native southern plants, but we have folks on the call from all over the US, and I'm just curious to know, Bunny, what area are you in? Because maybe I can speak a little bit more direct to you. But I will say that some things that you can do to prevent bloat is you don't want to allow your goats here in the Southeast region. A lot of people like to plant clover. You don't want to feed too many clover because those are one of the things that causes bloat. Grazing or allowing your animals to graze or browse in pastures when it's too soon. Some plants are very, very, very fibrous, and they're very immature, and that also causes bloat. And as I said, I could get back to you on some things that may cause death and stones, but death, just some of those very toxic species of plants that grow in the wild, if you are allowing your animals to graze or browse in natural forests or natural woody areas.
And the next question we have, do you have to give dewormers to sheep, lamb at some time or on a schedule? So that would be based upon your management. If you choose. Now, what we usually try to share with people, and again, this is coming from a sustainable point of view, is you're only giving those dewormers to the animal that have worms. And so we try to stress that versus the whole herd. And so I know that differs with some rule of thought, but you're taking care of what you see, basically. And so again, you could choose, like I spoke of a maintenance, but that's nobody is sick. Nobody have parasites. That's what I mean by maintenance. And again, with your herbal dewormer, yes, it is herbal dewormers or herbs that can be utilized as a dewormer, but you cannot give a herb dewormer after they get parasites. It's not going to work. It's too late, because you have to take in consideration that herbs take a time to work. And herbs is a longevity. I always try to tell people herbs is working with your body all the time. And so that's why you get in, like I got into a maintenance, because now that herb, those medicinal properties is in that animal throughout the year. So you're not just giving it to them one time once a year. And so, you know, please take that in consideration. If you're going to do herbs, you got to go all in. It cannot just be thinking of it or utilizing it as a chemical-based dewormer. Okay, so Bunny was saying copper can be toxic to sheep, not goats. So both animals receive copper. It's the amount of copper. Goats can tolerate more copper than sheep. So they both get copper because that's trace mineral. We as well have to have trace minerals, but it just, and that's the question above asking about the mineral blocks, because it is mineral blocks out there that have a high concentration, and even loose mineral that have a high concentration of copper. And that's why I spoke on, you know, reading your labels. And then if you're just so confused, go to that manufacturer, call and make sure that their block or their loose mineral is conducive for sheep. They will tell you right off the bat about that. And I think Ms. Bonnie is either making a statement about the fishtail and the rough coats from the copper deficiency. I think you spoke on that, Asha, about the rough coat.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I referred to the rough coats as in the 5-point check. That's one of the things that people like to analyze when, you know, observing if your animal is sick or not. And Ms. Bunny, you are very correct. I may have said that backwards in referencing the copper with the goat and sheep, but you are definitely right. It does cause the fishtail in the goats, and the rough coat is a deficiency. The rough coat is a sign that there's a copper deficiency with goats.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to share that sometimes our farmers are not aware of, when you see your goats, and the sheep would do it too, when they start eating the bark off the trees, that is a lack of mineral. They're not getting enough minerals. And I appreciate Miss Susan Kerr stated that loose mineral, trace mineral is best because you want them to have it all the time. That's, we do the same. I use a block, but then that block is covered where it's not melting or what have you with the rain, but it's there for them. We have to do enough with our animals for as maintenance, and that's one thing I want them to be able to go and utilize when they need it. Their body will tell them when they need that mineral. And so, yes, thank you, Miss Susan, for, you know, loose minerals. If you use a trace mineral block, please, you know, you leave it, but then also get what you need to keep it from, you know, losing the block and just melting and so forth. So make sure you're able to do that as well. Thank you, everybody, for saying check labels. It is so important because you will be so surprised. You'll go into a Tractor Supply, you go into and sad to say, you know, most of the people that work there don't always know the best interest for the animal itself, you know, and so you have to be very, very diligent in reading your labels and doing the homework and research for yourself, because it's so very important. We don't want to lose our animals based upon a mistake that we make.
Okay, I see where Bunny, you're in Northwest Oregon, and you said that rhododendron kills goats with just a mouthful, and unfortunately it's coming here. So again, I will speak to the Southeast region. I have heard of rhododendron. I know that it is a very toxic plant, and it's not, unfortunately, it is very dangerous for your small ruminants. And I've also heard of rhododendron being used in other senses in other countries, but it is native to North America and other places of the country, other places of the world, such as Europe and things like that. Like I said, I have not heard of many cases of small ruminants dying here from rhododendron, but I know that it is a very, very, very toxic plant for them to ingest. And I'm also willing, or I'm very curious as to how some farmers up north in your region have prevented their animals from consuming it. And I also wonder if it's a palatable thing. Is it something that they prefer to eat? Is the flower of the rhododendron, is that something that they prefer to eat, or is it the stem of the plant? What is it about the plant that they love so much? Again, that is something that I'm not too familiar with. Maybe Felicia is, but I love to look into it. Thank you for bringing that up, Bunny.
Also, Miss Bunny, I'm going to share a link, and of course, this is for everyone, but Miss Bunny asked a question. Now, again, we have to definitely give the disclaimer that we do not, know these companies that we're sharing with you, and they're not sponsoring us at all, but this is just me doing a quick search because I do my own herbal dewormer. I make my own, and the one that I'm getting ready to share seems like they do too. It seems like it's a farm and they create their own herbal, and now they put it on the market, and that's what I have done as well, but I cannot share that here. So definitely this is a farm that have created their own. But one of the things I would just share with you is looking, if that's something that you want to do the research for, is the herb itself. Just start breaking down some of those herbs and doing the research for what you're specifically looking for. And then also take in consideration that some of your cover crop, and these are your, there's a cover crop chart online. Those type of forages sometimes help with a lot of our ailments with our animals. And so again, doing the research for your cover crops. No one farmer could just plant all of that be on the cover crop chart. But if you broke it down and just start researching and saying, well, like Asha said, I live this place and I know that these things can grow here. Keep doing a deep dive in those, and you start seeing that some of our forage also help with parasite. And so, or you may have to plant it. It may not be on your land. And that's one thing that Asha did mention, is doing a walk through, a pasture walk, to see what you already have, walking over your pastures. And you may need your extension agent, or you may need your NRCS conservationist with you to help you identify what grasses you have. But to me, the first thing before you buy any seeds or start even doing a grazing management, you need to find out what you already have, because you'd be surprised. We have microclimates. And so just because you may be next to a farm and they're just a mile away does not mean you could have a total different growing type going on, which is called a microclimate. And so it could be totally different, meaning you can grow things and raise things differently than the farm just a mile away. And so please keep that in mind, but bring the professionals if you're not sure of identifying these types of forages. That's good. Because you do have to scout your property. And that's one thing that Asha didn't mention, but that is so important. It is so important to walk your land. And one of the things with us doing this for so long, and I know others farmers can speak to this, you can start telling when your pH change in your soil, because it will show up in what is starting to come up. And so when your pH change, you'll have different growth, different plants to come up that never have come up. And so, and of course, we don't always want that acidic pH on our land when you're growing the animals. Now, if you are vegetable and your livestock, that's where Asha said record keeping, because we know we do have certain things that we grow that like acidity. And so, but now that don't always work with all breeds of animals. So then you really have to do record keeping on that. But yes, if you're planting things If you're doing different things on your land, the soil as well as the plants that come up will definitely tell you what you're doing. Do you have any other questions? In the pasture, what causes the pH? A lot of it has to do with the management of the animals. If you're a heavy feeder, if you feed a lot, the waste of the feed, it's a lot of different things. It really boils down to your management, but it has a lot to do the intake. What is the animal intaking? And of course that gets on the soil, and now you have the fluctuation in your pH. So it's again, I always put it on us as the managers of our farm. It is so important to do our homework because we create our headaches. I'm not gonna lie to you. We create our headaches because if we open the gate and you let your animals out, they will survive. They will survive. So it's us. We're creating a lot of the issues on our land. And that's why I always stress to people is do your research. And it's a continuum of research. It's not just, oh, I do my research before I buy that first animal. It is a continuum research. Again, because if you never had animals on the land or animals have not been on the land in 50 years, the land is going to do something as soon as you bring the animals there. So you got to be ready to catch that. You don't know what it is. You got to see if it's, you'll know right off the bat, if you don't have organic matter, you're going to start having runoff. So then you're like, oh, you got to figure out, because the hooves of the animals start breaking the land down so fast, then you're like, wow, I don't have enough organic matter. You will soon, just having the animals there, but you got to take care of that problem of now bringing the animals there. And because the soil wasn't up to par, you got to do what you need to do to make sure you keep that soil covered. Because if it gets bare, you're losing everything. And so it is a job to raise livestock. But if you start learning these things at the forefront, at the beginning, you can deter a lot of the issues that will happen, 15, 20 years later. You're able to catch it before it becomes a big issue. Any other questions, please? If you want to unmute, we really appreciate that, because we do want to hear from you, and we're just so appreciative of everyone being here. I think we answered all our questions so far. And again, I just want to, make sure everyone know that is just one link out of many. We have so many people online that are creating products and so forth. So please, that's just one link out of many. I don't want you to think that's the only company that do herbal dewormers. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I have a question. I live in northeastern Washington, and I'm interested in starting up a herd of goats. But I really, although your information has been very, very helpful, I really need some guidance in terms of what's a good agency or group to approach to get some local information. What would be a good breed up here? What are the specific problems for my particular area that I need to watch out for, those kind of things. Any suggestions?
Yes, ma'am. One would be farmers markets, because most of them know other farmers. So even though it's vegetables there, but they know everybody else. And
okay.
I always said work with a local farmer. And so asking the people at the farmer market if they can refer a livestock producer to you or a small ruminant producer to you. Others looking for possibly a goat association. You may have a goat association in your state or your region. So it could be either or. and they definitely can help you as well. And then the
All
last
right.
one that I like to always share with people is the Livestock Conservancy.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And Livestock
Thank you very
Conservancy
much.
is online, so, but you definitely could call and talk with someone as well.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and then thanks, Chris. You know you have your extension office and your NRCS. Are you familiar with them?
I'm familiar with the NRCB, but that for beef, but the NRCS. Okay.
Yeah, Natural Resources Conservation Service. It's a
Okay.
USDA entity, and they
Okay.
usually have offices in your local area. It's called and referred to as the USDA Service Center.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So that's where they're located. And then your extension service is usually with your the universities in your area.
Right. Right. With the local ag school. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have, let me see, I think someone also. Oh, thank you, Susan. So also, if you can look in the link as well, Miss Susan has given us the Pat Muntz, M-U-N-T-S. This is for Miss Fagan with the WSU extension and the Spokane County Conservation District.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Miss Susan. Any other questions? And Ms. Fagan, the email address is in the chat. Thank you so much.
I see it. Thank you very much. That's great.
Yes, ma'am. And I thank you all. This is what we love, because as producers and specialists around the country, we all need to help one another. So I appreciate everyone's help today with just helping everyone else. This is something that we love to do for as producers, and it takes all of us. My children and I would not have been able to be where we are today without other farmers helping us. So I appreciate you all so much in the chat, assisting all the other farmers and the new farmers on this particular presentation. We appreciate that so much, because yes, it's not about us. That's the one thing I always like to tout about for as NCAT specialists. Majority of us farm. So you're not dealing with an entity that only just know the information. Like, we honestly are going through this on a daily basis, but we are never ever saying that we know it all. So we want to make sure that we are definitely sharing every entity that's out there that have all of this information in your local area. And it's phenomenal. It's so much information out here. And again, it's so many new farmers that are creating products. So please, please do that research so we can support. I know with my wool, with the Gulf Coast Native, I worked with another farmer. They created a wool mill on their property in Georgia. And so I send my wool over there. So it's helping one another and supporting one another. But at the end of the day, you know, we are responsible for our animals, but we also just need that added help and education from others. So we really appreciate everyone. Definitely don't want to hold your time up, but we are here for you. We definitely don't mind staying longer. If people have questions, or if they want to come on and actually speak and ask their question, or any suggestions from anyone, we're definitely open to this. To that. And so at this time, we can close this particular week of Weekly Wednesday workshop with Asha, Tillman. And again, if you have any other questions, you definitely will stay here as long as we need to and stuff. But we thank you all for joining us today. And we definitely want to share with you, always check out NCAT Facebook page for these announcements, as well as going to our website and signing up for some of our newsletters for your region. Asha put that in the chat, our email address as well, because that definitely get you into our database, and those types of things are emailed out to you when we have different workshops. So thanks everyone for joining us. We appreciate it so much. And if you have any questions, please don't leave. We're here to answer them. But have a great rest of the day. Good. I think we may not have questions. Asha, thank you so much. Thank you for just, sharing your expertise. And again, we got to do it again.
Thank you, Felicia, for pushing me up to use my voice and my knowledge of what I know of small ruminants. This is definitely a fun experience. It's a learning experience as well. Like I said, I'm familiar with the Southeast region. We know parasites is one of the biggest things we battle here with, farming small ruminants. Yeah. But seeing so many people on the call from the northern areas, northeast area, northwest area, I did not realize that rhododendron was one of their problematic things. And I looked it up really briefly, and I didn't even realize it was native to North America. I thought it was a Pacific Coast type of thing. So that was something new. This has been a very learning experience, and this was exciting. I love to do it again.